So you've written your book, you've come up with the perfect title, you've got an amazing cover, and now you're ready for the description. In this video, we're going to discuss writing copy. But wait a minute, isn't this video supposed to be about descriptions? Well, that's where the fun part comes in. My name is Levi Samuel, and I've been writing and publishing books for over a decade. Writing copy is any time that you are writing for a marketing purpose. This is anything you put on your social media pages. This is any time that you're writing a description for your book or a summary, or really any time you are writing with the intention of reaching an audience, you are writing copy. Before we can really get into the brass tacks of descriptions, there are a few terms that are kicked around. In my opinion, they confuse more people than anything, and really it's not something that's isolated to just descriptions. This problem seems to stem all across the writing industry, and I'm sure probably other industries as well. People start using a term incorrectly, and as that term grows in popularity, the incorrect usage continues to expand, and then before long you have a bunch of people using the same term that's just not right for what they're meaning. That happens quite a bit when it comes to descriptions. You have terms like outline and synopsis and blurb and summary, and even book report and book reviews sometimes get mixed into summaries, when really your summary and your description are pretty much the same thing. And then your blurb is similar but still slightly different. As far as the other stuff, your outline, of course, tells the entire story arc. Your synopsis is going to be very similar to your outline, with the exception of a synopsis is more written with the intention of somebody else reading it. It's usually going to be done more professional. You're going to want to worry about a synopsis, especially if you are going after a traditional publisher. It's not nearly as big of a deal dealing with the indie market. It is still a good thing to have, I will point that out. As far as book reports, like I said, we don't need to worry about those. That's more of an academic thing with somebody studying a book. And then, of course, a review is an opinion by somebody who's read the book. Whenever it comes to your book description and summary, which, like I said, that's the brass tacks of this video. But before we really dive into that, I want to discuss blurb real quick. And a blurb is, like I said, it's the same thing as your description or summary, with the exception of your blurb is going to be shorter. Your blurb is typically going to be 100 to 150 words. The easiest way that I've found to think of these things, whereas your summary is a fairly long breakdown, which usually between 500 to 1500 words, describing every detail of your story. Whenever somebody is asking you about your book, really the first thing that comes to mind, just that memory that you have that you pop off to explain what your book's about. For the most part, that's your blurb. Now, yes, it needs to be written well as well, but it's also going to be something that's easily spoken. And that is where it sets it apart different from your summary or description. Your summary and description, those are going to be usually 300 to 500 words long. I like to think of it as movie announcer voice. If your description seems like it would be good as a movie trailer, then you've done a good job. I like to write mine as if it were being narrated in movie announcer voice, which would be something kind of ridiculous just to speak, which is really where you get into the difference between your blurb and your description. When you're thinking about your description, you need to understand that it is an advertisement. A book description has really two jobs. The first one is conversion. Your description's job is to convert potential readers into buyers. A secondary job would be for discoverability, and that's where if you're employing SEO or search engine optimization, any keywords that you might be using, if you've plugged those into your description, it's going to have a higher chance of turning up in search results. That's more important when it comes to nonfiction than it is fiction. It's really hard to keyword stuff when you're doing fiction. Not that it can't be done. But the real question is, how do you come up with a good description? Like anything, I like to start it with research. Like I showed you whenever I was doing my cover video, which I'll link that up above. Anytime that you are going to start a new task, it helps to look at your genre, look in the market that you are going to be going into, and see what else is already out there. This is one of the few regards where I would recommend trying to isolate traditionally published work over indie work. A lot of times I would say stick with the indie stuff. Really, it doesn't matter in most regards. The difference here is with traditional work, every aspect aspect of a book has had money put behind it. The cover, the description, the title, every detail of this book it's a marketable product backed by a company. So therefore that company is going to put money into making it the best they can make it. Most indie authors don't have all of that. Most of us are just winging it and doing the best we can with what we've got. Yes, money is spent sometimes, but usually that money that's spent on a book is going into either the book cover or editing or formatting or stuff like that. A lot of times people don't really look at the description as a place to spend money, which is kind of a shame because writing copy is an extremely important thing, and honestly it can make or break your book. When you're doing your research by looking and targeting traditionally published books, these books have already had money put into the copy that's on those pages. If you can target those traditional books, you're going to be better off than targeting indie books. What I like to do is I will collect 12 to 15, sometimes more popular books in the genre that I'm working in, right there on the Amazon page or any book retailing page. I'll just copy and paste the entire description and I'll make a compilation of them in a Word document. Once I've got all of my book descriptions right there together, I will go in and I will color code the different sections of each one. And, what do I mean by sections? Well, for the most part, every book description is going to be broken down into a series of things. The first thing that's going to happen in most book descriptions is going to be the introduction of either the setting or the main character. And then the second thing is usually going to be the opposition. And this doesn't always have to be directly the antagonist. It could be a potential friend, or it could be a rival who becomes a friend. Usually you're going to have your main character along with whatever the description of the setting or the world setting, and then you're going to get into your opposition, be it a friend or foe, it doesn't matter. From there you're going to have whatever your conflict is. I like to call this the hero's call to action. This is the enticing event that gets your hero from inactivity to activity. By having this enticing event, this is what's going to really hook your reader to get them engaged and make them want more. Usually it's whatever is going to be the changing point from Act 1 to Act 2 if you're doing a 3-act story arc. Whatever is going to be the pivotal moment of getting your hero into the story is going to be what you're going to focus on. Now, one thing to pay attention to whenever you're coming up with whatever this enticing event is, by having your enticing event usually within the first 3 chapters, you're answering that question quicker, which is getting the reader engaged. And the reason being is because with that you are making a promise to that potential reader. So if they go ahead and purchase the book and they're going through and let's say whatever pivotal moment you chose was the resolution of the entire book, they're sitting there and they're waiting for that question to be answered the entire time they're reading the story. And if that doesn't happen quick enough, they're going to feel bored. They're going to basically just be turned off by your book. And then let's say that they're the reviewing sort, they're going to drop a bad review that the book was boring, they couldn't get into it, and that deters other readers. And then you're going to have the question or the goal. You're raising the stakes. You're getting whoever's reading this description excited about the possibilities. Will the hero save the day, or will they be the latest in a long line of casualties? And then usually when you'll end the description is what I like to call the buyer's call to action. And you have 2 types of call to actions. You have a strong and a soft. A strong call to action would be buy now to find out. Or a soft one would be find out in the latest edition of blah blah blah. But really before the description, there's one detail that a lot of books don't have that I really think most should. And that's what I like to call the hook. Or in some cases it's called the tagline. You'll see on sites like Amazon, whenever you go to a product page, you've got your book cover, you've got the title, you've got the author name, you've usually got how many stars it's been rated, and then directly below that you usually have 1 to 2 sentences that you can see, and then the rest of your description is you have to click the read more to get to that. Usually with that first 1 to 2 sentences, that is your hook. That needs to be as engaging as possible to get readers excited and wanting to check out the rest of the description. First off, you do not want to use a theoretical question. I've tried using this myself, it doesn't work. And other research that I found says theoretical questions do not work as a tagline. You want something exciting. You want something that's going to pull somebody in. Make them ask a question. question. Another thing, you don't want to directly do the comparison, this book meets this book. As a tagline, that's usually not what you want to do. Now, that could work if you're doing an advertisement and having that as your ad copy there. But in the book description, usually not so much. Really, you want to hook the reader and get them pulled in. When it comes time to actually write your description, first and foremost, do not stick with whatever the first one you come up with. It's usually not going to be the one you want. Whenever I'm writing description, I usually have to write my own description probably 10 to 15 times before I come up with anything that I would even consider sharing with somebody else. And most of the time, whenever I'm doing that, I may have one little sentence that's gold in, attempt 4, and one little sentence in attempt 7. And usually by the time I get to the end, I've found those little pieces of gold in each one, and I can pull them apart and put them together for one pretty decent description. And sometimes it may take longer than that. When you're approaching these descriptions, you do not want to approach them as the author. You are being a marketer at this point. You need to write them as a marketer. The purpose for this is to sell your book. You're also not trying to give away the total story of your book. You are simply inviting somebody to engage in. Again, you're looking for a movie trailer, not a complete recap. When I'm writing these, I like to ask the who, what, when, where, and why. Who is the story about? What is the objective? When is it taking place? Where is it taking place? And why should the reader care what I am telling? If you can answer these questions, you should have the general basis of everything you're going to need to make your description happen. And a few other tips to stick to: you want to try to make the tone of the description match the tone of the book. You don't want the reader to expect a particular voice from the description, and then they get into the story itself and it's an entirely different voice. On the flip side of that, you always want your description to be written in third-person present tense. It flows better than any other. By doing this as a trailer instead of a recap, the reader is not going to feel like they've already read the book. That's an extremely important thing. If you've got a long description that's detailing every little detail that's happening, your reader has nothing left to wonder about, so why would they bother? And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with, always make sure that there are no errors. Make sure that your description has been edited, proofread, spell checked. The worst thing that can happen is a reader's going through and they see an error in the description. They are automatically going to assume that the book is full of just as many errors. If you couldn't get 300 to 500 words right, how are you going to get 60,000 plus words right? Those are just a few tips. I hope they've helped. If they did, make sure you like and subscribe to my page. I upload new videos every 2 weeks at this point in time, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye.